by virtue of great community policing. From the consent decree release documents, and I want to quote, because it's important to keep this at the front of our minds over everything else. LAPD has become the national and international policing standard for activities that range from audits to handling of the mentally ill, to many aspects of training, to risk assessment of police officers and more. The crime numbers that are released here publicly every week validate that statement. This commission's support of, caring about, and appreciating the members of the Los Angeles Police Department, both sworn and civilian, does not require 100% agreement on every issue all the time. And our support for, caring about, and appreciation of the work and the person, Chief Charlie Beck, does not either. So on we go, working towards an even safer city with even better community policing, with even better training, with even more lessons learned, and hopefully with even more money. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2 on the agenda is the report of the Chief of Police. Chief Beck.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you very much for your support. You know, I want to echo what our President says. You know, the test is not whether we agree on everything; it's whether we are the balance to each other, and that is proven no better than in the events of the last few weeks. You know, we support each other. We see each other's roles. The maturity of this commission to understand that we both have different roads to follow that lead to the same goal is very, very important. I want to also thank the Commission for recognizing the valor of our police officers in West Valley Division, responding to the reports of a man with a gun who had already committed one attempt murder. As our officers responded, he attempted to kill them and nearly succeeded. One officer was hit by a fragment of a bullet that traveled immediately through his windshield directly in front of him. It was just by the grace of God that he was not fatally wounded. I talked to him yesterday. He's in remarkable spirits, has a tremendous attitude, looks forward to returning to work very quickly. And, you know, I couldn't be more pleased of the way he handled this and also the way that the command and the rest of the officers in West Valley handled it. So, you know, we've been extremely fortunate over the last few years in not losing a Los Angeles police officer on the streets of Los Angeles, and I hope that good fortune continues. And then that good fortune is a result of hard work, good training, adequate deployment, and cops that know their jobs. So I think that's something that cannot be overstated. On to my report on crime. We are beginning the second month of the year, so we're starting to see some figures that are fairly solid. Tremendous reduction in homicide so far this year. We're at a 41% reduction versus last year. Of course, you know, it is very new in the year. To give you an idea what that means, in 2013, which of course was our lowest homicide year since the mid-'60s, we had 29 homicides by this time. So far, year to date, we have 17. So, you know, a good start, and hopefully these numbers hold true. Rapes, we show just under 5% decrease. Robbery is the one category of Part 1 crime that is up very slightly, less than 1%. The total is 7 incidents. Aggravated assaults are down 8.6%. Total violent crime reduction compared to last year is 4.5%, and compared to 2012 is almost 19%. Property crime down in all 4 categories. Total property crime reduction so far year to date is 13%. So far, total Part 1 crime, that's the aggregate, is 11.8% reduction compared to 13, and 17% compared to 12. Shots fired are down. Numbers of victim shots are number of victims shot are down. Part 1 crime is down in all 4 bureaus. Gang-related crime is down a total of 19% so far year to date, and 29% compared to 2012. Attacks on police officers are up slightly. Officer-involved shootings are down significantly. Personnel statistics. We have 9,874 sworn personnel on payroll and 38 recruits in the academy who are not on payroll. That puts us at 9912 in the aggregate. Reserves, 267 level 1s, 21 level 2s, 189 level 3s, 371 specialist volunteers, 38 chaplains. We have 2,807 civilian personnel, 540 civilian vacancies, and 4,005 cadets approximately. And Chief Basinger tells me that the new class of cadets numbers almost 700. So we'll be looking forward to that graduation and adding them to our ranks. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda is the report of the Executive Director, Mr. T. Fank.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the Commission. 2 brief items. First, item 10C in closed session will be continued to next Tuesday, February 18th, 2014. And item 8D as in David on the open agenda. A page was missing from the department's report. Page 4, a copy of it has been placed in front of each of you and given to the board secretary, and also placed in the public agenda book at the back of the room. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda is the report of the Inspector General, Mr. Bustamante.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have nothing.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, which consists of information items and filed items relative to noise variances and special event permits submitted for the period ending February 7th, 2014. Item number 6, do we have any presentations?
Not today.
Okay. Item number 7 is the consent agenda items. These items are considered to be routine and uncontroversial, upon which the board is provided with adequate information for approval without inquiry or discussion. Would a commissioner wish to pull any items as special for discussion 7A through 7C?
Move approval of items 7A through 7C.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, we are now on item number 8, regular agenda items. Item 8A is a verbal presentation. Would a commissioner wish to pull any item from 8B through 8D as special for discussion?
I'd like to briefly discuss item 8D. I'd move approval of items 8A, 8B, and 8C.
Have a second?
Is there a
We have
second?
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
Okay, we will begin with 8A, Department's verbal report and discussion regarding the status of the predictive policing project.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good. Fred Pohl.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chief. I'm going to give an overview of the state of predictive policing, and then my friend and colleague, Captain Malinowski, is going to give the view of an area commanding officer who's embraced predictive policing. As you may know, predictive policing as a term was coined in 2008 in a journal article on public policy written by then Lieutenant Sean Malinowski and Chief Bratton. Since that time, a lot of work with Captain Malinowski and the mathematicians at UCLA, and we've arrived at a predictive model that works. And while we were not the first to activate predictive policing, that goes actually to the city of Santa Cruz. We were second, just a few months behind them. The premise of predictive policing is that if crime can be predicted, then it can be prevented, and it can be disrupted, and the effects can be mitigated. The model that we use on predictive policing relies on years and years of crime data, 10 years precisely, and it works on the when and the where, and not the who of who does crime in Los Angeles. And therefore, it's not a it's not an overall solution to crime. We still need officers on the street making good decisions, good consensual encounters, stops based on reasonable suspicion, and arrests. And so it really does not take the decision making away from the police officer or from the commanding officer. It works on very high math, well above my academic achievement, but high math and very small boxes. And the size of the box that we patrol is important, because we could put a 500-mile square box around the city and it would not be useful for patrol. It would be 100% in its predictions, but not useful. And so the idea is that we get the boxes smaller and smaller, and that when we're able to isolate crime in those smaller boxes, that's an indication that the algorithm is working and not chance.
The box size is a half acre?
It's about three football fields. Yes, 500 feet by 500 feet. And that is what we're currently using. We can go larger, we can go smaller, but at present, that's what we believe is the best size box. So every part of the city of Los Angeles has a box, and we have rows upon rows and columns upon columns, and we end up with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of boxes. But again, that's not useful for patrols. So we, in the areas, we isolate the top 10, 15, or 20 boxes, what an area commanding officer can...
It's about I'm wrong. It's about 5 acres. It's 500 by 500, you say?
500 by 500 feet.
That is about 5 acres.
So that's 250,000. Oh, it's what? Come on, you got it. Wait, the guy right back there. What? It's an acre. Yeah, okay. But this is the 500 by 500 box is 250,000 square feet, which is about 5 acres.
That's right, about 5 acres.
Come on, I want to agree with that guy. Figure it out and then come up to the microphone.
Of course, we're not firemen, so
I'm a real estate guy. If I'm off on this, I'm really screwed.
trouble, yeah.
So in every area, we're giving the officers 10, 15, or 20 boxes, what they can reasonably handle, and those boxes move around depending on the crime that we're trying to predict. And we currently predict 3 crimes in the city of Los Angeles. We predict burglary, auto theft, and burglary and theft from motor vehicle, and no other crimes at present. Although that could change. Those crimes together represent about half, a little over half, of all Part 1 crimes in Los Angeles. So it's a really good selection for trying to impact Part 1 crimes. And I'm going to pass off to Captain Malinowski to talk about how it looks on the at the street level.
So in Foothill area, we started with predictive policing in a pilot in November of 2011. Those 3 crime types were chosen because they fit a criminological theory of repeat victimization, especially burglary, we know. And the numbers bear that out, that the location that's burglarized has a much higher incidence of re-victimization within 2 weeks. So this is a near repeat model that we use. And as a practical matter in patrol, we have 2 maps per day published, one for day watch. It covers 12 hours. It puts out 20 500 by 500 foot boxes for patrol, so that during their discretionary time patrolling, instead of a more random patrol or using only instinct, they're able to hit the boxes that have the highest mathematical probability of a crime occurring in that 12-hour time period. Then we track how much time they spend there. They change their status on the MDC to show that they're in the box. They're still available for calls during that period, but the clock is running. So then I get a report every Monday that tells me how many minutes and how many hours by basic car we've spent. And what we're seeing is that if you spend somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 70 hours per week of targeted patrol in those boxes, you see some kind of impact. And when we've deviated from the plan, when we've changed the number of boxes, or last year I put 2 boxes per basic car. It turns out if you put 2 boxes per basic car, they're not the highest probability boxes for the division. And so we lost ground when we did that little experiment. Now we're back to the basics of 20 boxes for the whole area, and we're seeing the results year to date here. Again, during the test period in 6 months that we did a rigorous scientific test, we were down 12% in the combined 3 crimes, and burglary was down dramatically, 25%. So just as far as numbers, that's 22 fewer burglaries per month.
Did people go outside the box? In other words, did burglaries go up around the boxes?
We look at that. We looked at the phenomena of displacement, and what we found instead of displacement, and we looked at the recent literature on it. What we're seeing is the conditions don't persist outside. These boxes are like a cherry patch for a criminal, and they cannot easily move that a block over if the police are there. So what we see in the latest literature is a diffusion of benefits. So if you have a 500 by 500 foot box, you're really getting benefit out to about 1,000 feet, is what the mathematics professors are telling me. So we had big reductions, and this year to date, now that we're back to a very disciplined approach and we're actually spending about 80 hours a week in a box, I'm seeing big reductions. For instance, on burglary year to date, I'm down 60%. As far as raw numbers, that goes from 70 crimes at this time last year to 28 this year. And then same thing with GTA and burglary from motor vehicle, down 24% in GTA and down 27% in the other. So that's 65% of my crime problem. I'm getting big bites out of those crimes year to date, and so that's really driving our crime reduction. And it's just part of doing business for the officers now. The only mission they get is the predictive policing mission. So they take the 5,100 or so boxes that make up my division. They concentrate on 20 of them. Those 20 represent less than 1% of my land mass, but over 6% of my crime. So why wouldn't you be in the areas where you have the highest probability?
Tell me how, with CompStat, the interrelationship of predictive policing, how CompStat makes it more effective, or do you get mixed messages, or is it complementary or supplementary?
No, I think it's complementary. We still do, like my partner John said, we still do focus on patterns when they come up, and we still do focus on individuals that are responsible for those patterns. And so you can't just kind of put this on autopilot. So you do have to make sure your leadership is getting the officers to put out a net, if you think of it that way. It's like a preventive net to these particular boxes, and then crimes bleed through, and you have to go after those crimes.
And remember, violent crime is not impacted by this, so Sean still has to deal with violent crime in the CompStat model.
Correct.
It's interesting. I'm trying to understand. So the variables that the formula considers, it's mostly geographic based.
Yes, it's all. The only data in there is the crime type, the location, longitude and latitude, and the time of day and the day itself, the date.
So the other additional factors that you just mentioned, individuals and
Criminal profiling.
Yeah,
Right.
that's more.
We don't include that. Right. We don't include that in the algorithm, but we do when it comes to CompStat. We still have that kind of problem solving that we need to do. And I should tell you too, there's problem solving that goes on in these boxes. We have impromptu community meetings where we'll go out there and pull a whole. Put a command post vehicle out there, we'll have 40 or 50 people, and we're occupying that space for an hour, and we're also educating people about the fact that box represents a risk.
And so the boxes shift depending on when patterns are identified, and that's how it works.
Yes, the boxes can actually shift in minute to minute in real time, but in reality the number 1 box is usually very stable, and the number 20 box is the one that's more likely to move around. And so as you point and click on the screen, and you can turn off burglary and burglary and theft for motor vehicle and just go to auto theft, and the boxes will change, so you can really target in on those specific crimes and times of day.
And has there been discussion or can this model extend to other kinds of crimes, or has there been discussion about that, or future plans?
We are looking at expanding to shots fired and shooting victims, and there's been some requests for expansion to traffic, and really it all depends on how much buy-in we can get and how much we can reasonably overlay onto the things that other people are already doing.
And has the background data demonstrated that this model is effective for those kinds of crimes?
In other jurisdictions, they are using it for violent crime, and in the United Kingdom, for instance, they use it for public disorder. They're able to predict. And then traffic, we're just starting to dip our toe into that, but the early indications by the mathematicians is it should be almost more easily forecast than the crime itself.
And what is the community response if this model results in increased policing in certain boxes, in certain areas, or has that been attention at all?
No, we have. I think the thing that's helped us is we go out to the community meetings and talk about we go through this same process where we talk about it, and then we do the impromptu meetings in the boxes, and there are a lot of questions at those meetings, as you can imagine. But no, I haven't gotten anything in the area CO's office to indicate that people are uncomfortable with it. Usually they like to see us there.
Sure, it's a deployment issue.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. President, we do have 7 public comment cards.
Does anybody else, anyone else have questions? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the first 3 public comment cards are Michael Novick, Pete White, and Jeff Warner.
I think that if you believe that it's only about stopping residential burglaries and thefts from cars, you're kidding yourselves. It's the leading edge of the wedge. I can predict a lot of criminality in this city. I can predict, for example, based on 30 years' experience, that the LAPD will be killing about a dozen people and shooting about 50 people in the course of a year. I can predict that if there's going to be crime happening in Los Angeles, it's crime in the suites. And that, over at some of these bank headquarters, that there are crimes being hatched right now, that over at LA Unified, they, are figuring out how to break the rules governing bond money for fixing up schools and using it to spend it on computers from Apple. And I can predict that, this board will turn a blind eye to what's going on. I think that, this reminds me very much of the period in the 1800s when retroactively they came up with scientific racism to justify the racialized slavery and colonization, occupation, and genocide of Native people. And I think that the basis of this so-called predictive policing is about trying to predict, as the man said, they're using it to predict public disorders in the United Kingdom. Well, I can predict that there'll be a lot of public disorder if this system continues trying to rip off people and steal people's lifeblood to maintain institutions like the LAPD.
Thank you. Pete White.
I think the quote, I am Pete White, I think the quote of the day for me was high math and small boxes, and something about not really understanding the science. However, we are talking about deploying this model in communities, and we know which communities this model will be deployed in. In a Yale study that was commissioned by the ACLU utilizing LAPD data, it illustrated that rates of crime across race and ethnicity were nearly equal. However, stop rates, detention, arrest rates skyrocketed amongst people of color, particularly African Americans. LAPD post-Bratton has made it a practice of creating new language. So instead of having racial profiling, you can't report that anymore. It's called constitutional policing. That essentially creates a legal framework to justify rights violations in these communities. High math, small boxes. I would love to hear a breakdown of who you've netted in that area when you talk about there's no criminal profiling. I would love to hear more about these community meetings that you're going to. In the Skid Row community, we've been calling for y'all to come out, and Chief Beck, who used to be the captain, Chief Beck of Central Division, who refuses to come out. And so we say no to predictive policing. We say we want to hear more about this cost. And we say public safety isn't defined by these new crazy models. It's defined by ensuring the resources that the mass resources that come into LAPD are redirected into our schools, into job development, into things that truly make us safe. We predict that that won't happen unless people in our communities stand up and make sure it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff Warner, followed by Jamie Garcia, Hamid Khan, and Jabril Mohammed.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Warner, 3785 Wilshire Boulevard, 90010. I have some experience with data analysis. I spent 40 years as a research scientist in academia, NASA, and Chevron Research. And when I listen to the talk about predictive policing and its successes, I worry about the biggest trap that scientists can fall into, and that's self-delusion. So there's no doubt in my mind that we heard the truth, that when more police are deployed to a box, that affects how people live there, and crime is decreased, and so is people's quality of life is decreased to some extent. So what I ask is that you people be a little bit slow about how predictive policing is, it's already adopted, but spread throughout the department, and you make sure there are really controlled experiments or controlled studies so that you really know it is working. And it's not just that because you throw more police at one area that reduces crime. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, Katie Crawford from the Director of American Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts Technology for Liberty Project warns against the trend toward data and statistical software as a panacea. People are excited about technological solutions for vexing social problems, Crawford says. This technophilia that has taken over, people assume if a computer is involved, then it's smarter, more efficient. It seems like we're moving in, she continues to say, it seems like we're moving in the wrong direction in how we think about crime. Instead of figuring out why people are robbing houses, we are paramilitarizing our police, turning them into robocops who take directions from computers as to how to go about their day. As Katie Crawford states, the belief in technology to solve crimes in communities negates the fact that policing in itself is inherently biased against people of color, especially those of African descent and poor people. Predictive policing is deceptive and problematic because it presumes that the data input and algorithms are neutral. The accuracy of predictive policing programs depend on the accuracy of the information they are fed. It promotes racial profiling. Just as we see in the Suspicious Activity Reporting Program, in the Inspector General's audit of March 2013, we see that SARs are collected on mostly people of color. So we see that changing the tool for capturing criminals doesn't take away how policing affects certain communities. I, as a registered nurse, believe that in order to heal people, we need to understand what needs they have. Whether it is for food, shelter, medical or mental health care, or community centers, we need to understand that no form of policing, with or without computers or databases, will bring the peace our communities deserve.
Thank you. Hamid Khan.
Hi, good morning. Hamid Khan with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. So here, as a part of a much larger surveillance apparatus that LAPD has laid out, which is an extension of and a very critical part of NSA, is now this whole, which has been called snake oil gadgetry that is being used. And we're kind of looking at this, predicting this RoboCop type future that, people would know exactly where crime is going to happen. Commissioner Kim raised this issue of geographic-based variables. It's very interesting that how these variables have been working because, in essence, we know what the war on drugs has done because predictive policing is only as accurate as the information that is inputted into these databases. And we know the disparity in sentencing. We know the racial profiling. We know the inherent racism in many other policies that we face. Just looking at a couple of things, Philip Stark, who's the chair of Statistics Department of UC Berkeley, reviewed documents and evaluated things about policing, about predictive policing, and he says that I'm less than convinced. He says, first of all, the issue is, and I quote, a comparison of the same jurisdiction to itself means nothing. If you're going to do this, you're going to have a comparable city with predictive policing. You cannot just say that. The Commissioner Soboroff talked about CompStat model, where Bill Bratton was talked about the champion of CompStat and reducing crimes in the 90s, while LA was going through a reduction in crimes in the 90s as well. So in a way, we're just kind of basing ourselves on this as completely, again, I'd say snake oil gadgetry, which leads to racial profiling. And again, people of color and poor communities are going to be impacted. Jeffrey Ratcliffe, who's the chair of the Temple University's Department of Criminology, says is that predictive policing is not proven by a stretch, and we cannot go down that road. We have another, Ed Smith, who's a criminologist and a veteran police officer, and he's done a whole study of 156 cities, and they're saying there's actual little data at all that predictive policing works. So it is not just about, people really reaching out to you and saying that it's a waste of resources. It's about racial profiling, and we're going down this road that we're going to look back and see that this snake oil gadgetry has to stop.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Jabril Mohammed.
Morning, Commissioners, Chief. This is Jabril Mohammed for Bismillah, the Justice Movement. Here again, we're drawing the line between the department and the people. And the people are the best police, if you ask me. They are concerned about themselves more so than anyone else. So, but here again, predictive. It sounds so much like prejudice. It sounds so unconstitutional in that it deprives me of my equal rights and my due process. You are predicting, you are profiling, and you are targeting. We need to reanalyze or make another analysis or look at this again, because it's predicated on prejudice, your own admissions. You're predicting that someone is going to commit a crime. They predict football games. They predict baseball. It sounds like a board game. We need to be cautious of how we orchestrate our efforts to remedy. Okay. This one here, the language, although the results are favorable, okay, but we know how things are, how can I say, artfully designed for the sake of those who are making the reports. No disrespect to the Malinowski and Mr. Romero, but we were just saying we have to look at this in the face of what it actually says to us, that we're predicting that people are going to commit a crime, and that creates a prejudice.
Thank you, sir.
And the final comment card on this item is Quasi Ruma.
Morning.
Morning.
Take your time.
Thank you. My name is Kwasi Nkrumah. I'm the co-chair of the Martin Luther King Coalition of Greater Los Angeles. Ever since 9/11, we have accelerated the process of tightening up of all kinds of security measures, policing policies, et cetera, and a lot of this has intersected with this increase of dependency on digital technology. This is a very dangerous and difficult path for us to follow. Benjamin Franklin once said that any society that trades its liberties to increase its security will generally end up losing both. You know, I think that that's very, very correct. And I draw from the fact that back when Reagan was in office and there was massive unemployment, I was living on the East Coast in industrial city, Baltimore. There was, in fact, a massive increase of crimes of all types with the increase of unemployment in our communities. And I was dealing with a group that was, in fact, trying to grapple with a lot of these issues. There was a study done in Detroit that kind of charted this stuff out. And it was true. It was true science. Recent years, with the massive unemployment that's hit our communities, with the economic crisis, with people losing their homes, with the increase of homelessness in our communities, predictably, the 19% decrease in crimes of for example, gang crimes and the other decreases in crimes are counterintuitive. If we are looking only at what the machines are telling us is going to happen, we're going to make a huge mistake. I mean, in Echo Park, for example, gang warfare is down probably prior to what it was in the mid-1950s, but yet a gang injunction was proposed for our neighborhood. I just think that there needs to be a lot more thought about how these policies are enacted and what they do in terms of producing predictable patterns of racial profiling, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And that is the final comment card, Mr. President. We will now move to item 8D, Department's report dated February 4th, 2014, relative to the status update on the Department's 2013-2014 fiscal year annual audit and inspection plan.
Good morning.
Welcome.
With me today I have Jeff Phillips, Police Performance Auditor 4.
Good morning.
Welcome, sir.
I submitted this report to update the Police Commission on our audit plan because we are behind, and I wanted to let you know that just a little bit of history. This is the first 2-year plan that the department had, and I'm responsible for it. It was ambitious. I knew it was ambitious when we went into it, and there were things that happened during the summer with special projects that have caused the schedule to be behind a little bit. So I just wanted to let you know that my people are working very hard, and you're going to see us a lot in the next 4 months because I basically will have about at least 33 reports coming to you, and the remaining will come in the first quarter, the end of the fourth quarter reports. The other things that are happening is I'm putting together the next 2-year plan, and with the lessons I learned from this one and the input I get from command staff and your office and the Inspector General, we'll look at what we can in reality do, and it's still going to be ambitious, but we'll have some flexibility. And the other thing to consider is when we look at a new entity, it takes a lot more time, and until we really get into that, we don't know how long, and 3 months is usually too short. So there are a couple on the last part of the fiscal year audit plan that we ran into that. So I open it up for any questions.
Rob, do you have a question?
First, I thank you for the presentation. I wanted to hold this just to get that explanation, and I appreciate it. I do think the plan looks good. I agree it's ambitious, and I understand how some of those things change, but it's also very important, and that's why I wanted to hold it. The one thing I just wanted to clarify, I think I know the answer to this, but going forward, if things change so that you're not able to follow the plan, is part of your protocol then to be in communication with Mr. Tiefenk so that as we're following up, we know what's happening?
Absolutely. Mr.
Great.
Tiefenk and I talk on a regular basis.
Great.
So I will make sure that that happens.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We have any other questions? Let's have a motion for approval of 8D.
Move approval of item 8D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now on item 9. We have one public comment card. We have Jabral Mohammed.
Good morning again, Commissioners.
Morning.
Chief, tomorrow is the official anniversary of the shooting of the van. I was at a meeting last night at Town Hall. I got a chance to meet with the Inspector General, who was disappointed to the county. And, he was telling me about how violence was a part of the job. I was taken by the fact that he made a comment regarding the mayor, and he said that the chief had given a recommendation, and the mayor disagreed with it. I'm in recluse. I haven't really gotten up exactly what that language was. But I just wanted to formally, as a member of the public and a member of the community, and a member of, and the Emir of Bismillah, the Justice Movement, I just wanted to formally, as a matter of record, state that given my ignorance in terms of what the chief recommended, that if it didn't have anything to do with the dismissal of those officers, and this goes for all officers involved in misconduct whereby injury. I object if the chief did not fire these people. I object. These people should not be able to perpetrate violent crimes against the community and be salaried. So I'm just here. I'm compelled to come today. And I'm also asking that the commission review the station tape for January 26th at the Newton Division, when the mayor of the Bismillah Justice Movement made effort to become a member of the CPAP. Review that tape. We did about 1,500 hours. January 26th, Newton Division, 3400 Central Avenue.
I do have
Thank you, sir.
7 additional comment cards. We have Emilio Laquez, followed by K, and Ariana Alcaraz.
Good morning. My name is Emilio, and I'm an organizer with the Youth Justice Coalition, Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Youth of color in Los Angeles are being targeted, profiled, surveilled on a daily basis. Policies such as Special Order 1, the iWatch program, and gang injunctions make the implementation of oppressive practices front and center for our youth. Suspicious activity reporting and gang databases funnel our youth into a cycle of school-to-jail track, making it harder and more difficult for them to have a holistic lifestyle. Our communities have come together and have been successful in gaining public forums or hearings with the LA City Human Relations Commission around gang injunctions and suspicious activity reporting. We urge the Commission to direct the LAPD to operate with full transparency, honesty, and accountability in the HRC's implementation of these hearings. We call on the LAPD to uphold the public trust and not to derail the process of the upcoming public hearings. These are one step forward to dismantling the surveillance state and working to better our communities and improve public safety in Los Angeles. We look forward to these hearings and to educate our community members about all of these policies and how they're being carried out across the city of Los Angeles. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Public hearings are the basis of a truly democratic society if the public are listened to. And the public includes Los Angeles Community Action Network and Stop the LA Police Coalition. LAPD must stop interfering with the LA Human Relations Committee's plan to hold public hearings on the LAPD's suspicious activity report and gang injunction. Public hearings of SAR gang injunction must be independent of the LAPD. Democracy requires genuine checks and balances. The SAR and iWatch surveillance is an attack on civil rights and human rights activists and on youth of color, especially the poor, who did nothing to create the condition of poverty that's all over the world. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. It's a snitch program that divides a potential unified, diverse, multi-ethnic society, a truly democratic society. In a related issue, a report by the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board concluded that the government's bulk collection of telephone data is not legal, is not constitutional, and is not warranted. That's it.
Ariana Alcaraz.
Okay, so a few things. Number one is last time I saw you, I was at the West Side. You guys had the police commission, like a community meeting there, and I thought it was really cool, that you guys went out there. However, I've never seen any of them come here and ask you to go to their community and have one. I've only seen us, and you still haven't come out or even made an effort to. And then I want to say some stuff on predictive policing that I heard, and how like the way that we're using like technology and the advancement in technology, and how, you know, UCLA professors are getting in on this, and you know, devoting so much time and like creating this system where you can like put in crime and then, you know, have these boxes come out. And I just think, like, you know, that knowledge and that education could be used in something like much better. Probably the city could use that to figure out, you know, use some rigorous science and math to figure out how we get, you know, resources and money back into the things that matter in our communities and not the police department. I also, last thing, I ask that you rescind Special Order 1 and the iWatch programs immediately. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next four speakers are Bilal Ali, Quasi Ruma, Jamie Garcia, and Hamid Khan.
I'm Bilal Ali. I'm the California statewide coordinator for the Western Regional Advocacy Project. We stand in support with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition and the move to rescind Special Order 1. We are committed to rescind this order because we feel that, and the iWatch program, because we feel that the iWatch program Trevor martinizes our communities. It causes suspicion, the same suspicion that was responsible for taking this young man's life from this self-proclaimed vigilante due to programs such as the iWatch program and its spying apparatus that's been set up. That we also believe that this is set up to target organizers and those who dissent against this parasitic society, as we see with the attacks on organizations and like downtown, like the Los Angeles Community Action Network, where members have been targeted by the LAPD, including myself, been thrown into jail simply for not committing any crimes, but simply called the crime to stand up against this unjust order. So we're asking the Police Commission to, if you do have that power, to rescind this order, and then that way you can rescind yourselves through the lens of a rubber stamp board and a board of cronyisms that's been appointed to go along with the. So we ask you, if you do have power, if you are really the oversight board, the eyes of the community, you rescind this draconian George Orwellian measure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Kwasi Nkrumah, Martin Luther King Coalition, again. We're very strongly supportive of the Human Relations Commission holding these hearings. As I said before, this computerization and digitalization of information on the entire population has grown way out of control throughout the nation at every level. People are highly concerned about it. It's beyond time that we had serious discussion about this in our own communities, and particularly when some of this is beginning to manifest at the community level where we're living. And again, as likewise, this has been raised by several other speakers. We think that the SARS program and iWatch need to be rescinded. We think that there's been a lot of discussion about humanizing the LAPD's relationship with communities and healing some of the damage that's been done over the years in terms of its relationship, particularly with communities of color. And that's not going to happen as long as this digitalization process where people's names go into computer banks for minor reasons and are maintained there for years and years continues. We recently had an experience in our commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, where we engaged in a nonviolent civil disobedience as part of an action on budget cuts, one which we actually had made arrangements with the police department about in terms of the civil disobedience thing. Comes up later, the city attorney's office designates that our failure to move was from the scene of a riot. I'm told by a staff person down this, oh, well, this must have been a mistake in the computer. These kind of mistakes get people's names placed in databases because being part of a riot is considered terrorist activity. Look it up in the dictionary, which had nothing to do with what we were doing. So we need to humanize our approach more and digitalize it less. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition demands the rescinding of Special Order 1 in the iWatch program. On October 10, 2013, the LA City Human Relations Commission passed a resolution to hold public hearings/forums on gang injunctions, SARS, and other public safety issues. So I come before the Police Commission because I expect you to encourage, participate, and protect the upcoming public hearings. I expect that you will ensure that they will not be derailed. For clarity, I say hearings, and we still need to advocate for this. But I say hearings because of one particular reason. When gang injunctions and suspicious activity reporting are discussed, the only way I feel the community will get their due justice is if LAPD is subpoenaed and they testify under oath. I see the Police Commission as responsible for the full and honest participation of LAPD at these hearings. And I expect your support as we advocate for these hearings. And if we don't get your support, I expect you stay out of the way as these hearings forums begin to develop.
Hello, once again, Hamid Khan with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. So let me just briefly map it out for you. Suspicious activity reporting, Special Order 1, iWatch, intelligence gathering guidelines, predictive policing, electronic surveillance, Stingray, Trapwire, high-definition cameras, Joint Terrorism Task Force, Joint Regional Intelligence Center, and then now we keep on seeing Counterterrorism Special Operations Bureau, Major Crimes Division, on and on and on and on and on. And what you are seeing is, under your oversight, is this huge surveillance apparatus that is every day sucking in tremendous amount of resources from the communities. You've heard people talk about it, where this money should be going. But what do we have? In essence, when the Fusion Center audit came out by the U.S. Senate subcommittee, it was a scathing audit. And they said that the intelligence gathering from local law enforcement that goes to these fusion centers was irrelevant, duplicative, and useless. When Mike Downing, who's the head of the Counterterrorism Division, was even asked about that thing, his only response was, there's a lot of white noise, but an occasional gold nugget. But he could not point to a single conviction based on that gold nugget. So what you have is, now we know about the NSA, now we know over 23 trillion. 1,000 million makes a billion, 1,000 billion makes a trillion. 23 trillion that we know of pieces of documents. And what do we have to show? What do we have to show? Our lives are being laid bare. And then you have intelligence gathering guidelines where you can take on fake identities. That is entrapment. That is even much more insidious than what NSA is doing. So that's why we are here today, to publicly remind you, you have a copy of the motion that the Human Relations Commission passed unanimously on October 10th, that LAPD and the Commission is responsible, that LAPD acts in transparent ways. LAPD does not try to derail this public hearing process. LAPD needs to be under oath and subpoenaed for these public hearings to happen. And we're going to reach out to you, and we'll hold you accountable, and we hold you obligated for this public demand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is the final comment card. We are now on item number 10, closed session. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 10A and B in accordance with various government codes. Now back in open session. In closed session, item number 10A1 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 10A2 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 10A3 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 10A4 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. And in closed session, item number 10B was discussed. Mr. President, is there a motion for adjournment?
Move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
The average adult spends more than 8 hours in front of a screen each day. Children spend up to 4 hours. Studies show that sedentary lifestyles put you at risk for disease, even at an early age. But a healthy lifestyle is just a click away. Los Angeles Recreation and Parks provides over 16,000 acres of parkland with parks and lakes, swimming pools, golf courses, skate parks, and dog parks, and more than 180 community recreation centers. A healthy lifestyle is just a click away. laparks.org.
Don't worry, Patty. This isn't going to hurt me one bit. Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Shapiro in beautiful Encino, and you're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel. Open wide.
Hello, welcome to Connie Martin's and Talks Books. My guest today is a woman whose voice has sung for America because her words answer a need and her experiences, no matter that they belong to her, are universal. My guest is Maya Angelou, and the book is All God's Children Need Traveling Shoes, and it's published by Random House. And we will be back after a short pause to talk to Maya Angelou. Welcome back. We're talking with Maya Angelou, author of All God's Children Need Traveling Shoes, published by Random House. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you very much.
And this book is autobiographical.
Yes.
It is a year in your life with your son Guy in Guyana.
In Ghana.
In Ghana.
Yes.
And it was a year, as I said to you before we began, 1962. After that, no one's life was ever the same, because it was the year before Martin Luther King was assassinated. It was before John F. Kennedy was assassinated. It was almost a time before.
Well, that's true. Now, the book goes up to 65.
Mm-hmm.
It does include the time of the murder of President Kennedy. But there was still an innocence.
That's right.
In the country, in the U.S., and the U.S. is more influential than most Americans, United States citizens, know in the ethos and the attitudes, the climates of other countries. So that innocence also pervaded many African countries at the same time. There was a burgeoning hope, if you will, that but actually was dashed to the ground in later years. But it was a young time.
Yes. And that is the feeling of you coming to Ghana and putting your son in school, but he has a terrible auto accident.
Yes.
So it begins with that feeling of being, never mind an alien, but going through the tortures of the damned with your son lying in a hospital bed.
Yes. Terrible.
Yeah. Exile, was it a self-chosen exile against what was going on in the United States at that point, Maya, or was it a choice to go where, when you looked around,